Late today, but thank you so much for waiting. And please let us know where are you guys tuning in right now. I'm in Oaxaca. I don't know if you guys been in this part of Mexico, but I'm here visiting family, so I'm in this random office right now. And thank you so much for everyone who is joining today the session. And today we have a very special guest joining us with us today. Let me introduce you to Hannes from Random International. Just give me 1 second. Hey, Hannes, how are you?
Hey, very good, thank you.
Thank you so
Joining me
much
from
for.
Stockholm.
Where are you now?
Stockholm,
Stock-
in
Oh, nice.
the wilderness just outside Stockholm.
Oh, cool. What time is it there now?
8, just past 8
Cool,
p.m.
great, amazing. No, thank you so much for being here today. I mean, we've been briefly met before in Mexico City. Like you've been in off before. And before we start, just let me just introduce you a little bit more about Hannes and what Random International does. As I don't know if you guys know Random International, but they've been like in the field of creating art and design using robotics, light art and design for quite a long now, right? Almost 20 years, something like that, 2 decades
Yeah,
ago.
yeah,
That's quite a long ride that you guys have been into creating this kind of stuff. And I guess the first question that I'm going to ask you is that is like how do you guys start into this journey? Like what was the starting point of making this? Because like nowadays we hear this term calling like the immersive experience and like immersive digital art installation, but before it was just pure experimentation.
yeah. Yes, it still is. I think it's still. Um, I think the most energizing. First of all, thanks for having us tonight. I'm only half of the founding partners. My partner Flo is traveling at the moment, and Flo and I are both Germans who both for different reasons went to the UK to study. Both wanted to do art degrees, didn't find the sculpture and fine art degrees in Germany very hands-on, and decided to go for design, a sort of basic education in design back in the late 90s. And we both, again, at that point, we didn't know each other. We both fell for the marketing of a university, of Brunel University, in the west of London, whose design degree at that point was the hottest shit in town in the UK. It was the Tony Blair had just come into power. It was like a very sort of energetic vibe in the country, and they were like, we're the new Bauhaus. And me and Flo, being German, we both compared notes retroactively, and we were like, that's cool. We know Bauhaus. That's what we want to do. Where you can have an incredible experimental perspective on creativity, on making art, but you do learn all the relevant foundational skills: metal work, casting, electronics, programming, physics, maths, everything, materials, graphics, typography. That was like this all-round degree, and that's how we started out for the first few years, and pretty much from day one found that we're very complementary, very compatible in that. filling in for each other's deficiencies, supporting each other there, which means that I really sucked at maths, but I could cook, and Flo sucked at cooking, liked eating, and was really good at explaining maths. So we were a match made in heaven, became friends. We were slightly about 3, 4, 5 years older than most of our contemporaries there because the differences in the school system. Started working together on many of the project work in Brunel for 4 years, worked at different places independently of each other. And once we were done, we did the show catalog for the graduation show, and looked at each other together with another guy called Stuart, who was very good at software, something that software design, programming, something that neither me nor Flo were very particularly adept at. And the three of us looked at each other and were like, it would be so much fun to do this. Like, this is over now. What are we going to do next? It would be really nice to keep working like that, experimental, creative. And so we decided to, but there wasn't like this immediate vision to set up a studio. And but we did set up a virtual entity called Random International, trying to sort of pull together all the different experiments that we labeled as our degree show work under one roof. Then I moved on to the Royal College to do a postgrad education. Flo and Stuart followed suit a year later. And by the time we left the RCA, me and Flo were ready to get serious. And then Stuart also joined in for a while. He then later left for Apple to join their design team, which is sort of semi-populated by Royal College graduates.
Wow.
And then that's when we set up Random. I think that was pretty much 20 years ago. I graduated in 2004. And we have not looked back. Very experimentation, focused practice. Pretty quickly, I think that's how I'm going to finish that sort of setting the scenery. I think after we started out as experimental technology collective, I think, or creative, experimental and creative technology. We didn't really had it in our minds to work as these sort of classical fine artists, sculptors. What we did, but passionately believe in and still do is creative self-expression. I think what we found that the way that we expressed ourselves was best done collectively. So we did this, I don't think we're a classic collective, but we're definitely an art group. Flo and I have a very, now very well matured way of developing and editing each other and our creative expression. What we felt very quickly was that we were really bad at working for clients. We really loved that. We felt incredibly annoyed to have to take anybody's creative direction, especially that from agencies, usually art directors working for commercial clients, telling artists what to do. That was our worst nightmare. We always had this hubris, I guess, that we thought we knew better and could do better and would be better off alone. And that drove us pretty automatically into a design, into art, into an art world where people championed creative self and artistic self-expression. I remained very happy for the longest time. I think it's only now that we're developing a slightly more mature perspective on that. But we still hate creative interference. It's the worst. And we're now Random is a 10-strong, 12-strong studio with a really amazing ecosystem of dozens of people who at one point or the other have worked with or for the studio across Europe and places as far flown as India and Japan. Oh yeah, my father is visiting. That he's running around here. we've been running through the pandemic with relatively unscathed, and starting a very for us very energizing new cycle of works this year, and yeah, that's where we're at the moment. Studio is based in London in terms of fabrication, in terms of logistics and project coordination. I live in Stockholm, and Flo is based in Portugal, in Porto, with family.
Hello. Sorry, I lost my internet for a minute. Are you there?
I'm here, yes.
I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry about that. I mean, as you know, I'm in the middle of a lost city here in Mexico, so I lost my my connection. And as you know, yeah, sorry. So we were speaking about your beginnings in this kind of new beginnings. The things that I see that you guys are really good at using is robotics and light. And this is something that is still being really kind of limited for a lot of people in the field, right? Like, no, just a few people have access into this type of, I'm going to call it like technology or elements to use into their practice with art. And I want to ask you, like, when you guys started to integrate this light and robotics into their field, like, I think one of the biggest installations for those that doesn't know or probably have seen before is this installation called Rain Room. And Rain Room was one of like the biggest kind of installation who was using a lot of robotics by controlling water into one single place. And I want to understand, like, when you guys started to realizing that was kind of an element to control. I'm going to play for everyone this Rain Room so they can start seeing how this look.
Do you want me to talk over it, or shall I just leave it? Oh, no, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, I'm just going to show them a video here about the Rain Room, so people can see a bit more about this installation, which is one of the one that I was speaking about. Just give me 1 second, and I'll be presenting this. Good, perfect. What? If you want to talk a bit more about the use of this type of process for using this type of technology, integrating this into your experiences?
I think our and increasingly so our my perspective on or my response to this to the question of how did we come to integrate or use this material or that technology, it's increasingly because it was appropriate. That we had no, like, it's in the, with very, very few exception, in the around 100 plus projects that we've done, it's been, it's like, I can count it probably on one finger where we had a technology and we're like, what cool shit can we do with that? Or process or whatever. I think that, and I think that's it's a given in our practice, and I think you can see it in other artists' work as well. And I think it's a good process to focus on the on what you want to explore, and then you choose how you explore it and with what means. And I think you can't. It's probably even good if you don't shy away from pretty simplistic questions. I think most humans have, if it boils down to it, and many artists have very simple questions towards their existence on this planet. And it's great if the answers to those questions, or the way that you explore them, also deploys sort of tangible, simple means. We're not friends of making things overly complicated in the way that they're experienced. Unfortunately, that often leads to very, very complicated ways of delivering simplicity. In this case, the pretty straightforward fantasy that we wanted to explore here, what emerged in a very casual conversation where we brainstormed and discussed and reviewed a different approach to a completely different project. I think it was something for some BBC film project to be shot in Tate Modern, and we had this idea, wow, one could do this and that with like printing things with water drops on a hydrophobic. It was pretty like, oh, how could we do this? It was very embedded in our practice to that point, 2007 or 8 or something it was, where we dealt a lot with temporary display of information. And anyway, we came up with this very convoluted contraption, and suddenly we were like, wow, like, what we're trying to build here is essentially such a complicated display with hundreds of thousands of nozzle pixel contraptions in the ceiling. It's basically a rain machine. How awesome would it be to stand in there and experience that at the push of a button? And then at the same time, we had started working with technologies that allowed us to recognize people in space for very different project, like i.e. camera tracking. Because in 2008, I think that was quite new to us, and we were really interested in that. So it wasn't exactly that we were sitting in our drawing board and going like, oh, we must envision a cocoon vibe in a rainstorm. It wasn't quite like that, but I think the fantasy was like, how awesome would it be to be in a rainstorm and be cocooned? Because that rainstorm is essentially the thing that we just thought up here. And then we were like, okay, but the underlying idea was boring for that printing machine. The rain room thing, that would be awesome. And then it took us 4 years to figure out how to do that. And that was all just curiosity. It was like, how could we do this? That would be actually really cool. And that curiosity dictated the way we experimented around it. We talked about it to each other and contractors and suppliers, and our.
I think we lost Haynes for a moment. So let me just show you, just while we wait him. I'm gonna share with you my screen just to let you know about, show you a bit more about what was how the rain room looked. So this room, as you can see here,
we've been is having like a million, like hundreds of pixels made of with water. Hey Heinz, you're back.
Where
I
did you
think we
lose
lost
me?
you. I don't know, like maybe the internet, maybe your internet got down.
No, but at which point did you lose me? Yeah, my internet
Oh yeah,
totally
yeah, yeah,
goes.
yeah, 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 yeah. No, you were talking about you were talking with contractors to fabricate this
Yeah.
rain room, which at the time 2008, like doing this with motion tracking for being capable to track people to not get wet when they enter into this space was kind of like insane, right? To make something like this possible at that in this year, with all of this technology that existed in this time.
Yeah, it was very self like often enough we had to do things ourselves, and that grew the studio at some point to almost 30 people because you go to any sort of, I don't know, creative technology agency or something, and their prices would be prohibitive. They were usually looking at our stuff, went like, yeah, sure, we could try that, and then made a totally risk averse costing. It comes down to those things, and then we couldn't do it. So we were like, oh, no, but we think we could do it, and then we hired the talent and the skills and techno art directed or art techno directed, depending on our own uh, um, proficiency, an internal team to do that. The first brain room was completely uh, um, developed in house, and then still we needed for stuff like water management. You need a pool technologist, swimming pool people, like not rocket science exactly, but you just need to grab like things from really, really far distant, different disciplines. Camera, 3D camera tracking is sort of robotic, it's sort of machine vision plus factory automation plus swimming pool technology plus people flow experts to, it's like, and now, yeah. But that's how we start and choosing technologies, and then they're often, they become maybe not ubiquitous, but more accessible. We've seen that a lot with camera tracking. That's a sort of, every iPhone now has a 3D thing, a 3D scanner in it and stuff. So, and for us, like the more we can standardize, we're like, yay. Like that's not how we progress and experiment, is by inventing technology. I think that's a necessity sometimes, but we're increasingly happy to use existing things, standardized materials, tools, and processes, because we have, I guess, learned also to trust our creative instincts a bit more and think like, okay, is it really necessary that we reinvent this wheel, or can we just cobble this together from stuff that exists and get to the same result? If we can't get to the same result, we still do, unfortunately, reinvent, but then that is so.
And in terms of like like for those as well who doesn't who just are arriving to this call and want to know more about Random International, you can take a look into his website and also their Instagram account, and they're been doing work for quite a long right now, and all of this work that they have been performing through all of these years. I do have a specific question, but it's related about like how do you manage to avoid working with brands and just focus on the studio with digital art? Like this is probably one of the most asked questions from people saying like they start into this career industry and and then they have to work with brands and somehow they would like to become just artists like the studio that you guys run. Like how you can like make possible this type
We
of
don't
model.
avoid working with brands. I think that's a misconception. It's if you look at any of the larger scale
Hmm.
presentations that we've done, many of them have had um, partners from some form of industry. Every rain room presentation had a different automotive sponsor. Volkswagen, For example, we Hyundai at the LA County Museum, Volkswagen in Jus and MoMA, Restoration Hardware in MoMA. It's incredibly rare to get some people like the Frankel Foundation for Art, for example, to invest in or fund fabrication for this, because quite frankly, for one rain room project, they can fund 50 development projects of young emerging artists. So we absolutely are not shy or averse to working with brands. What we are adamant about is the process, the way we do that. We need to be in control of the way it's done, and that we've been increasingly successful with that. And I think much more than in the before time. I think what you refer to is a very sort of 10 years ago, if you wanted to do this kind of work and weren't plowing, working like absolute idiots like we did, like do project after project after project after project, feeding 15, 20, 30 people full time every month in a high cost city like London. If you didn't want to do that and just wanted to experiment, you had to work for experiential design agencies and things like that, where you work towards brief, and brands understood they want to access the same sort of instinctive, I think, sphere in their customer that artists we can access through our work and so on. I think we're seeing a drastic shift at the moment. We're seeing artists emerging, becoming pretty much brands on their own. I think we're seeing that with TeamLab, who are in full control of their delivery of the work. We are setting up a specific delivery channel for our work. We're seeing very specific organizations popping up like Aorist or Superblue, who are incredibly well versed in despite sort of some issues in the beginning, but they're now getting into gear of how to deliver this work, where brands have a role to play, but the artistic production is increasingly in the forefront. I think also the entire cultural identity marketing branding sphere is moving in our direction. For them, it becomes really naff and really dull to go what they did in Milan for a decade and a half now, going like, here's some incredible work which is inspired by, I don't know, our new front lights or our new chair, blah blah, or whatever, and they literally burn work. I think what they've learned now, finally, or are starting to learn, is to put the creative output and the experience of the audience into the center, and to start recognizing, valuing, and celebrating a little bit more those who are responsible for it, which is the artists. So I think there's total emergence, there is a significant emergence and also opportunity now, I think, for content delivery creators, for artists, for people who work in that sphere, to bring their work to the people. I think we're going to see a sort of a move into that direction. My guess is we will see more artist-led initiatives, more sort of banding together of content creators, of artists, especially in the digital realm, immersive realm. The hunger is there. We can see that. There's left, right, and center immersive entities are popping up. Some are successful, some are not. There's only that many Van Goghs that you can, rip off license free and make into some sort of mindless nonsense. There's absolute scores of amazing creative content creators out there who are skilled, talented, hungry enough to do that. Again, I think banding up, sort of not unionizing, but sort of building a sort of, artistic collective togetherness towards people who are financing that, towards brands who want to license that, who want to use it, and so on, to warrant better and more accurate control of what happens with your work in the end. I don't think that's something that's at all finished, but we're seeing a large emerging sphere in this, and we really welcome it. It's like finally the world's waking up that this is a thing. This is a very it's an art form that more and more people really want to be exposed to.
Yeah, and I think like you said before, like what you guys have achieved really good is to just keep being kind of truthful to yourselves, right? Being authentic in the field of what you would like to explore, and then of course there is a brand that can just join the same kind of like thoughts and feelings to make your artistic work and to support this artwork. And this is something that like we usually get asked into this channel about, like, oh, I hate working with brands, I hate working with and I want to do my own artwork. And I guess what I see from your work is that you guys are you know doing your own work, but also collaborating with others, in this case brands, or in this case other partners who can make things together to promote art, which is kind of like the different kind of shift.
Yeah, and I think also that there's quite a fine calibration in terms of how like we don't we while we're very, I think we have this sort of dichotomy internally, also this dissonance. We're very, me and Flo are very, we work collectively together, me and Flo together with the whole studio. I think we totally suck at working with other artists in the sense of the same sort of, that wouldn't work. We absolutely, I don't think we suck at collaborating. I think that would be that's the wrong word, but I think we're very specific in who and how and with what. I think what we're really happy to do is to allow for individual competence to shine and to celebrate that. So if we're working with a composer, we're not gonna we're very aware that we're not like a film director who has competence, who has the experience to instruct the creative holistic vision to say, I want you to, we don't do that. We're very instinctive, very sort of, and then we leave it to whoever we work with, the choreographer, the composer, to do whatever she wants to, or the dancers, or the and I think we extend that, or we try to extend that also to commercial partners, to the people who finance, to exhibit, we collaborate with. We're quite authentic in our interest for that. Like with BMW, for example, their art group, and we had 4 or 5 years after the project, we still have a really good, entirely uncommercial relationship. We're just curious. They have incredible engineering prowess. There is an exchange in that. It's very sort of a very respectful relationship, and I think that's what we're looking for these days. Like, what are there brands that make stuff that we that stand for things that we like, that we can identify with, even if it's in the background. That like we're quite particular in this, and I think in that sense, I wouldn't shy away, especially if I were to start out now. I wouldn't shy away from commercial collaborations. I think it's pretty common, if you look in art history, that people with money usually have a deficiency of creativity and lustfulness and stuff like that in their lives. So it's a transactional thing, and as long as everybody's clear here, and if you have clear boundaries on what can and can't be done, it's worth considering. And it's, you know, if it serves you as an artist, as a creator, that if it amplifies what you want to say, if it helps you to reach new audiences or something like that, without, you know, cutting you down or abusing you or diminishing your integrity, or your own sort of, you know, makes you live against your values. I think, and that's not a given. Just because they're making money with something doesn't mean that they're automatically out to get you. I think that's a very sort of romantic misconception of how the world works these days. And I think there are many issues, and it's really, really hard sometimes to stay true to yourself, and it doesn't at all always work. It's almost like the exception that you end a project and go like fully, yeah. But it's really satisfying over time to try and to not stop trying. You know, I think the worst thing is to give up, to become cynical, or especially when you make art that you just don't, you know, go drive a bus. You know, absolutely not. And I think it's good to have that option to go like, look, you know, I'm not here for that. And I think that's more the balance. I wouldn't outright dismiss or say I want to make my art and I don't want to work with brands. Well, you know, if they help you to make art, then great. I think the other thing just to say is I think brands really have still so much to learn in terms of how to not talk to artists, how to not work with artists. There's a lot to gain for both sides. This nonsense that some, I don't know, repressed person in a brand thinks they need to give you a brief. Is like, and the way briefs are written is sometimes you just go by, not a thing. But that doesn't mean that inherently bad or not worthy of exploring.
I'm going to ask you something that it's about the question of the chicken and the egg, and it's regarding to like how do you know design and conceptualize things. You know, let's say for example, like, hey, you know, like I want to go and do things with balloons, or I want to do things with these
No, again,
materials, or I
no,
want
no.
to.
It's never that. It's absolutely never that. It's I think the idea. That question is answered fairly simple. It's in me and Flo. That's our way of doing it, and I absolutely adore the man for being there for that in my creative process and in our creative process. We do that in conversation. You know, we talk. We sketch and we talk, and that works on Zoom, in real life, whatever. And it's completely random, and bam, suddenly thing. And then we have this incredible, magical group of people that we can, at any point to regular working hours, we're quite trying to maintain that we're not like this crazy overworked, or trying not to be. Sometimes it comes to that. Anyway, we have an amazing team. Esteban, our head of technology. Often our design team, Federico, our production team, our financial director, she's often really important by setting boundaries, by telling us to stop, by asking us the right questions. That's how we, and then at some point it's okay, we need to go and find the lightest balloons in the world, fire away. You know, that's how we, I think they start in conversation, they mature. You never know where they really stop, but I think the visionarily, in terms of what we want to achieve, is pretty clear, and often that doesn't take long. You know, it's really cheap and easy to have ideas, but like to realize them, that's really fun and experimental, explorative phase, and sometimes it's painful, often related to strong heartache and pain, because it's just not a thing. It is not a thing. You can't have black light rays in normal day. That's not a thing. Doesn't exist, will never exist probably, and just forget it. Okay, so what else can we do? drones with smoke or something. Can they draw lines? What kind of smoke do you need? Blah blah blah. It's like that sort of weird.
That's what is called random, right?
It's there is a serendipity to it, and it's conversation. I think it's a dialogue.
Nice.
Backed by sketching.
So,
Flow
yeah.
sketches in terms of process. Concretely, I'm sketching on an iPad, and Flow is 3D modeling. He's always been doing that for 20 years, since the first version of Cinema. And there's always like this weird ping in it that I sketch something and it looks entirely different when it comes out of his then sketching hands, and then but there's always this weird editing process in there that makes it somehow still engaging for us, and we know immediately, go like, bit bigger, a bit smaller, oh, that's different from what I thought, blah blah. It's a visual cognitive instinctive mix process that's then expanded onto a whole studio.
How many people is in the studio right now?
Sorry?
How many people is in the studio right now?
We're 10 at the moment.
Oh, nice, nice, nice,
10
nice.
full time, some part time, but mostly like 10 permanent, and then incredible contractors, sort of fabrication partners, people we can go to for specific. That's a whole ecosystem that was not there 10 years ago. That's now there in London, in Berlin, that we can access now in even in the States at some point. In terms of creative technology,
Yeah.
very specific.
Right. So just let me take 1 minute just to promote the channel, and then I'll go back. There's some questions from the audience that I'm going
Yeah,
to.
Nora is asking. Shall I
Yeah,
read that
Nora
out?
says. Yeah, no, don't worry. Just I'm gonna read that out for you in a minute. Just give me one
Yeah.
moment to talk about the HQ. So thank you so much for being here today. To the guys who are just going to see this record afterwards, the HQ, as you know, is the only online interactive and immersive school that exists for touch designer, technologies, developers. And we have over 60 full touch designer and create technology video courses that you can go and see. And we have some private sessions, private coaching sessions as well, over 120 custom built touch designer tool projects, templates. And below in the chat, you can check out the link for the actual link. So if you want to try and test it out, the trial, the 7-day trial, you can go ahead and test it out. All right, let me just go back with you and with Nora to answer you back some questions. So Nora was asking about what do you recommend for someone um, seeking funding from brands, especially if you are more emerging artist status. What do you reach out to, and what do you recommend saying?
That's a good question. I think, what do you want? I think it's really hard. In my experience, it's really hard. The brands have their mysterious. I'm not an advertising branding person, no idea, or agency for that matter, who often help brands along the process of deciding where to put their attention, their money, their publicity, and so on. If I were you, I would, and that, in fact, that's also sometimes how we do it. Like, what do I want to do? What's my ideal like outcome here? Presentation of the work, an exhibition of what work? What do you want people to experience? Like, be pretty clear about that. What work do you do? So how much do you need? And then look around. Well, who's your match? I'm not saying don't be ready if you happen to run into the, I don't know, experiential art director of XYZ. Listen. I totally suck at listening often in that, because I'm super absorbed in our studio's art making, and I only found I'm late in life that it's really good to actually open your ears a bit, and maybe you can help a brand. Maybe you don't have to plow through your own thing. It's good. Like, my advice would be very clear on what you would do if you had the opportunity. Park that somewhere, have it in your sort of peripheral vision, and then listen to what they need, and then see if it comes together, and see if that sort of thing. I think be clear about how much you need, make some research, talk to your peers, talk to other people, how much, like, try to find out what things cost. I think money is always an underlying thing. I wouldn't ignore it. Be practical and band together with people. Find a good producer. If you're an artist, find somebody who can promote you. If you don't like promotion, find somebody who can talk about your work, talk you up. Find somebody who can sell it if you're not good at selling. If you find a good lawyer, accountant, things like that. People who you can energize with your work. Be a good sport in that.
I think you mentioned something that was, for me was really important to to mention in this talk. It was about sometimes you don't know how much to ask for, and the moment like a brand see you a bit more like with that kind of like a kind of like a doubt that you have, it's going to be difficult for them to understand what do you want, right? It's like, what do you want from us? Like, and what's going to be or kind of a return to give you that? All of this kind of understanding. It's very important, and I'm really glad that you mentioned that. So one other question that you already, I think, answered was how important is drawing in your process, and do you start concepting from sketching on paper? And if you want to talk a bit more about that, but
Flows. We just looked at the studio archive a couple of months ago in London, because we're going to move premises at the end of the year, and we have I think it's like a Library of Congress of Flow sketchbooks, because he is a paper person. I have switched to iPad and pencil, Apple Pencil, back in when it was still a bit rough, in 2016 or something. We both bought iPads on a trip to America, and pencils, and I loved it. Flo gave it to his kids. He was like, I can't, no. And I still love it. It's sort of, I used to sketch and draw loads as a kid. I then dropped it and worked a lot on the computer for a while, and I really love the sketch. It's thinking with my hands. I sketch a lot, but it's sort of, the first thing is conversation. I think it's to visualize, to clarify conversations. I don't sit down and sketch. The only thing I sketch, if I have a blank canvas without any thinking, it's usually some really German geometry, very boring and not very skilled. I come to life when I have something I want to visualize and need to clarify. And Flo's 3D, like, he's sketching with hands a lot, and he holds stuff into the camera always on the thing, and then he does incredible 3D, like usually in cinema. I do Photoshop
Great.
sometimes. I like that for larger scale architectural things. We've had some incredibly rewarding experiments with some weird Photoshop beta AI thing that I thought was insane to work with. I absolutely loved it. To witness a machine imagining humans. It's a project we're going to publish soon called Human Algorithm, which was I was blown away. But that's sort of mostly sketching, thinking, talking, imagining, sketching mix.
There's a question here from Goldrix. I am complete new to this space. Where do you recommend me to start?
Ask yourself why you're here. What do you love? What brought you here in the first place, and then dig in. Go in there. And don't be afraid. To make a fool of yourself. I think don't be afraid in finding weird stuff really interesting. Try to develop a feeling for your instincts and your needs, and then follow and look around. What's there? Who do things that blow you away? Go to lots of exhibitions, and not only digital stuff. Go to museums, theater. I think theater is one of the art forms. Scenography, lighting, spoken word, drama, choreography, music. It's all that. Like theater for me is one of the highest art forms. It's
a really good response. And
yeah.
do you seek more often for developer, coders for your projects, or visual artists, thinkers, but without technical background? Who tends to be more
No,
valuable in your
no, no, we don't.
team?
Absolutely no need for that. No. Mm-mm. It's a sort of, in that sense, it's a bit of a self-realization engine. We're trying to enable the people working with us in the studio to be able to realize themselves in that sense, and that. But it's like that's not the hard bit. The hard bit is to realize projects. Am I still there? Can you still hear me?
Yes, yes, I can still hear you.
Yeah, there's a warning message. Something went wrong. Try
Oh,
reloading
no,
the
no,
page.
no. Don't worry. It was just a spam message that
Oh,
you
okay.
deleted.
Yeah, I think so no, and also coding and stuff. We've got we've got a full-time software engineer who, if there's something he can't do, there's a very specific, incredibly skilled pool of people that we can access, and we don't. Yeah, we don't have needs in that. Like there's a no. Mm-mm.
So, uh, one question here is about what's inspiring you outside your own genre guild.
The impact of digital on the human condition, that whole topic, that's what our studio's work is about. That's what our whole life is about. What does that all do to us? It's very fundamental questions about our shared experience here, or experiences on Earth, and how this incredibly fast dematerialization affects our incredibly slow evolutionary processes, our evolutionary origins. Like we're such slow, like we're still made for living in the savannah 300,000 years ago, and our kids are, I've got, it's a consequence. My kids inspire me in that. Like I'm fascinated and also terrified at the same time on how what a sort of power digital has, and we're trying to keep them away, not dogmatically, but far away from screens whenever and wherever we can. We're very critical of that, and I think it's that's a very inspiring path. It's not always fun, but but it's fulfilling, I think, to think about that, because it's totally apolitical. It's very cross-cultural. It's cognition and neurology is a shared sapiens trait, and like the issues emerging. It doesn't matter whether you're in North Korea or in North Germany. You'll be stuck to a screen if you're a kid. Doesn't that's how your brain works, not your leader or culture or your Democrat or Republican or something. So that's something that works. I think there are some, in terms of so cognitive evolutionary biology, things like that. Music, always music. Theater, I mentioned it. It's something I do far too rarely. I live in a country where I don't speak the language very well, so I can't go to the theater here. I come from a country, Germany, where we have an insanely strong theater tradition. Germany, Switzerland, and Austria. If you ever in Berlin go to the Volksbühne, even if you don't understand a word, it's overwhelmingly awesome. They're crazy, and it's crazy funded. It's they're the most talented artists in the country are working in theater, I think. Scenography is a whole world of awesome. It's weirdly enough, it's storytelling in a most fascinating way. Exhibitions, I love going to exhibitions. Live music, amazing. Just seen you should check out UVA, United Visual Artists. Matt, the founder, got me and my wife into Massive Attack live concert here. The music of our youth performed live, all the albums from the 90s here in Stockholm, open air. And UVA did an absolutely outstanding scenography for it for 2 hours. Just, I mean, that's sort of where art really comes to life, and it's beautiful and very analog, very powerful, and of incredible artistic value. I think it's incredibly fulfilling to witness that. So that's all stuff I love. Japan inspires me immensely.
I want to be. We want to be respectful with your time. And probably we're gonna take one more question. There are more questions, but I think we're running out of time. And this have to do a little bit more about the future. And Steve here said, amazing work, very inspiring. With Gen AI and XR technologies and tools exponentially getting better and easier to use, where do you see the future of immersive design hidden?
I think it'll be augmented mixed reality stuff. I don't believe in this isolated, and that's not for sort of philosophical or social reasons. I don't believe that that's a very valid neurologically and physiologically. I don't think that's a great. You get sick, you throw up in your VR thing. AR, when you mix, I'm terrified of it, and therefore I think that will, you'll just, the world goes to shit, and you can make it bling, man. You can just have, it'll be so good to see, I don't know, you play Doom, but in real life in your street. I think it's going to be pretty crazy. That sort of, I think in that, and also in positive aspects, you can augment the art in your house. It'll be pretty, I think, discreet, probably in regular glasses or something. I think that's where I think true immersion happens in your head. It's not the environment you're in; it's how you perceive it. So I think that's the logical consequence before it then goes full Trump link or Neuralink or whatever Elon Musk is coming up with here. That when it's dialed straight into your cortex, before that happens, which might be a while, I think that's where it's going to be at. I think and I want to probably close on that. Sort of that's on a technical level where I think, hope, and will spend the rest of my life working for, is that humankind goes back to experiencing things in not goes back in terms of regressing, but it's celebrating our physical body. I think our bodies are so absolutely insanely well-designed machines. They're so magical constructions, the way that they make us experience the world around us. I think immersive art will be, hopefully, a portion of it will be increasingly designed to become physical, kinetic, and very sort of instinctively, emotionally engaging, but and probably something together that sort of celebrates togetherness and counters this mind-numbing isolation that we experience when we're all doom scrolling on phones and stuff. I think generations born in the sort of after 2010, I guess they will that we'll look back on the use of our screens like we look back on smoking in the bank or at the doctor in the 50s or something. It'll be like, that was crazy, man. You could use your phone like this. Like if I see the sort of 10-year-old children running around like stuck to their thing, I don't think that's a very lasting thing. And I think that the way we use our technology in our everyday life, I think it forms to some extent the way that we experience art and immerse ourselves in whatever. And I've not tried this Apple thing yet, whatever it's called, Vision thing. I'm curious, sort of mildly curious. I think these like things that promote this digital avatar stuff that Facebook was working on, or Meta, or what they're called. I think that's not uninteresting. There was a, where you have a full body scan, which in like 2 years you can probably do with your iPhones 18 in like high resolution, and then you can have an avatar and sit across from your friend. But again, it's all deficient. It lacks flesh and blood and nerves and smell and pheromones and all that kind of juicy, difficult, hard to control stuff. And I think that's where it's at. That's why as humans, we're geared to one way or the other find back to that. And I think that's where another portion of immersion will lie, things that sort of celebrate and recognize that.
Thank you so much, Hannes, for being here today. We're so grateful to have you and to have such a renowned studio, and also
Thank you
for this inspiring talk and also sharing your vision with us today. It's been great, and we appreciate it a lot. Well, thank you so much, guys, and I hope you can tune in for the next session. Thank you so much for being here.
If anybody is in Amsterdam this summer, go to the next museum. We have an ongoing exhibition called Life in a Different Resolution with the sort of retrospective. It's it's on show there. If you're in Amsterdam, go and visit them. It's the next museum, NXT Museum.
Go ahead. Oh, yeah, maybe you can. Where's the information? I can just put it in the chat here. Next museum. I'm just gonna search
NXT.
for it.
It's NXT Museum.
Good. I'll just find it. Just
Yeah.
put it here. Great. So if you guys are in Amsterdam, just make sure to check out their next exhibition at the next museum. All right. Thank you so much. See you guys later.
Cool.
Bye.
Super. Bye. Bye. Everybody.
Bye.